And here we are live for yet another week, yet another Bogus Hangout. There's no Bill this week because we want it to be more bogus than usual. So Bill and Ammon's Bogus Hangout without Bill, that's about as bogus as we can get. If I disappear too, we've perfected it. I am joined by Kristin,
Hello.
in the background at the moment, and by Terry, who is our new resident squirrel thrower. Because we weren't having quite enough work for Kristin to do. And John has joined us as well. John. So, without a Bill this week, Terry, what have you been up to this week?
Oh, this week, little bit of this and that, doing some programming. Looked at some co-occurrence stuff, optimizing some pages, thinking about a way I can automate it a bit. And
Yeah.
trying to do some outreach. I think it actually still works.
Cool.
I'm counting on it.
So, what languages are you programming in?
Oh, geez, over the years, everything from C, Perl, a lot of ASP. As soon as they brought up the, what did they call them, the C# and that stuff, I said, oh, you're trying to sell me more books than software, eh? Well, I ain't going for that game. So I quit that and just started doing the marketing. But now I've taken up PHP.
Yeah, PHP is good. Have you done any Python? Any Ruby?
Ruby's, I look at it as more of a client type thing, and I'm not a big fan of client-side programming. Usually leads to problems, but my only experience with that is with JavaScript, cross-browser. You remember the days, so
Oh, yeah.
I've always tried to keep as much of what I'm doing on the server as possible, eh? Where you have a lot more control over stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I must admit, years ago, I worked with a company who chose to go with Java. The entire site was run in Java applets. And they did this because they wanted to be free to go to any platform in the future. And about 6 months in, they said, we should have gone with Perl. Because, let's face it, Perl, you try and find a server without Perl. You know, good luck.
Well, a lot of Fortune 500, the first big company that I worked with wouldn't even allow Perl on the server.
Wow.
I actually had to prove to them that I was using Windows Perl, which was because here's the thing that people don't understand. Big companies almost can't use open source software because there's no support for it. Mm. And that's a big deal for them. They want to be able to phone up someone in the middle of the night and say, we got a problem, can you come and fix it? That's what it's all about, right? And,
but I thought that was you.
There's mixed cases in that. After all, Google's a pretty big company. They can't call anybody for support with their system except themselves because it's all home built.
Well,
and
it's also, the administrators are probably all Microsoft, right? Because they are running the internal networks on Microsoft stuff, right?
Some, but of
most
course,
of the ones I've seen, that's the way it's been.
Google's got its own OS. You know, their system.
Oh yeah, I'm familiar.
Their system was pretty unique, and of course, I think that's pretty much where Chrome's come from. Is they had enough experience of all the issues to say, do you know what? Let's put something out that's good for everybody.
The problem is with Docs. When you're using Docs, they own everything in it. Basically, they can look at it if they want.
Mhm. Yeah.
That would be another reason why a publicly listed company couldn't use it.
There's a lot of public companies that do use open source, but there's a lot that don't. And sometimes, yeah, as you say, it's because they want the the backup. But then again, I know some big companies that won't use support because they don't want to give away any proprietary secrets. Once they use
Exactly.
it, they don't want
That's
anybody
just
to know.
been my experience. But small country, right? Like not like the UK and that. However, when I did work with UK companies, they were also on Microsoft.
A lot of them, yeah.
Yeah. Which, when you've been programming ASP for 15 years to make some good money. I made more than if I had to decide to go with the open source languages, right? Because more demand, for one thing.
Yeah.
People who actually got cash. But that's, that's in the past.
So it's one of those things, isn't it? I wonder how many people still go with Windows servers rather than Apache. Because I must admit, I will prefer to go with an Apache server every single day of the week, even today. Because Microsoft have just about got there with their servers now. They're the last few operating systems have been pretty reliable, good uptime. But Apache have got 20 years of that kind of record, whereas Microsoft have managed it for 5.
Right. Well, they're getting better. If you look at the Azure, I can run Unix programs. I can get an Ubuntu server on Azure.
Mm.
Or Azure. I don't know what the fuck how to say it, but excuse my language. Jesus. Forgot what show I'm on here, Hammond. Like that. Yeah, I have to start retraining myself, too, for the future. And yeah, sorry about that.
Well, hey, I started following you when you were talking like that, so don't worry about me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, John, how does for your clients is there a lot of preference for going with Windows? Are they price conscious enough to prefer open source? How does that go?
Well, I started out doing a lot of enterprise work, so I was doing a lot of Java. I mean, matter of fact, that's all I did from about 95 till early 2000s was just Java, pure, all server-based stuff, client-side, Windows. Yeah, not much applets. Applets really, I'd rather not do applets. I'd rather keep it.
Applets were small. Servlets not so bad. Then you were using the servlets?
Yeah, JSP, a lot of JSP.
Yeah.
That was the vast majority of what I was doing, but I was also doing a lot of what I would call internet programming. I wrote a customized web server. I wrote a customized FTP server. I built customized FTP clients and mail clients that then ran at various clients' systems so that they could communicate and talk to each other. So I did a lot of that. Really, microphone just went crazy on me. Okay, there we go. So I did a lot of that kind of work. I swing my arms around and I hit my microphone. So anyway, I did a lot of what was called app server, which is totally Java-based. I did a lot of systems on app servers with what were called message beans and EJBs at the time, enterprise Java beans. I did a lot of work in that area. And then I started to move, that world started changing. Businesses started to do a lot more in-house, and they stopped hiring people on the outside as much. So I spent several years training all the people and basically trained myself out of a job. And so then I just started focusing on small businesses, and that's when I got into PHP, because it's really what's on every server, and it's what the small business can use. You're just not going to find Tomcat servers out there, to put Java on. So now I do mostly PHP. I still have some Java clients. Matter of fact, I'm working on adding some enhancements to one big client that I wrote their whole system in Java. So So
Yeah.
mostly PHP now.
I used to enjoy working with Java, although
Oh, I love Java. I
although
absolutely love Java.
it's a pain sometimes because the virtual machine, there were differences from one place to another, and something that worked great on your machine just wouldn't quite work in somebody else's virtual machine as well. For those not using Java before, the idea of Java was this isn't the same as JavaScript, completely different language. It's just developers like coffee, so there are lots of different programming languages named after Java, coffee. Java runs in a sandbox. The whole software runs in a virtual machine, which protects the system from being able to be manipulated. So it was designed for the web because the program could only run in its little sandbox. It couldn't get out into your system. That was the theory. And JavaScript used to do some of the same things. Microsoft decided to release their virtual machine to copy kind of what that was doing, but then they gave it all kinds of hooks into the main system, which broke the sandbox and meant that code could run on your computer from typical Microsoft. You know, take all the disadvantages of the thing and get rid of the main advantage. Java,
Absolutely.
powerful language, a little bit tricky to work with because it runs in this virtual machine, and you know, it was a nice language. JavaScript, whole different animal.
Right. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. I was getting to the point with Java where I never even had to look anything up. It just felt natural to me. But PHP is a pain in the rear. I'm constantly, you know, it just doesn't feel natural to me. But I'm getting pretty good at it. So anyway. It just doesn't feel...
PHP is a good, solid language. It's been around for a while, and you know, ASP through all its variations is the closest equivalent to that in a lot of ways. Microsoft ASP, the original ASP was quite nice, and then of course we got the Plus, and we got the. I didn't like what they did there. The main thing is by default it was putting in all those page states and view state information, which, you know, I have seen a single view state bit of code in a page that's 6 times the size of the actual page. I have seen, you know, 60K files of just the view state on a home page. It can't be that high. This is your first page view. But they've set it up so that everything is reporting its state all of the time. Terrible practice. But again, another reason that I quite like, you know, Apache servers is they're very unlikely to be a Microsoft house that doesn't know what they're doing. Hey, Ben.
Yeah. What's up, Ammon? You look very bogus today.
Especially bogus today.
Totally bogus, man. Good. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Kristin, did you have a topic you wanted to bring up this week? You're muted.
Not anymore. And I want to read the little comment I put in our chat on the side, because Terry dropped out, and so he didn't get to see it, and so instead of just copying and pasting it, which would probably be the more polite thing to do, I'm just going to read it. I said, I don't want to rant, Ammon. I want to understand. I would love for you to teach me if you can. And of course, what I want to cry about is Google's collections, and I've always been like the Google for President girl. Like, I love Google, everything Google. Like, this is the first time that I've been like, what the heck are you doing, Google? Like, this is like really dumb.
Okay.
Like, and so, teach me.
My first question is, what have you seen in your streams? Not what other people are saying is happening to them, but what have you seen that's wrong?
When I went over to Collections tab, I had like a million different things. Like, you know, there's the occasional bins, like, you know, thing is cool, you see it in Yvonne, but I can never say his name right. But he's got a funny little thing, and his humor, like little things that, there's a lot of funny, but there's a lot of porn, and I'm not okay with that. Like, I did not want to know that there's someone in our Let One Hand community that has a porn collection. Sorry, I don't want to see that, and I don't want to unfollow the person either. They're in our Lend One Hand community. I'm just really disappointed in people's interests, and so I guess it's my own deal. Like, maybe I just need to deal with, like, people can be versatile and they can be angels and like porn, but I don't like the fact that we have children like Ben, like Oleg's son, who follows us too, and I'm very protective of Ben, very protective of any child I see that's on here. I mean, he's adorable, and I love interacting with him.
Okay, take a breath.
Okay.
So, what you saw was a porn collection shared by somebody that's in your circles.
There's quite a few. I mean, I'm not, like, I wouldn't have made a big deal if it was only one.
And should he be?
Lend One Hand community.
Right, but my children don't follow any of the communities.
Oh, Ben?
I watch who they connect with. They only follow people that I know are going to post always child-safe stuff.
Okay, and this is my question. It's more a question because I thought that the way that I read it when I went over to set up a collection, because I wanted to do one on the Bring Back Our Girls, BBOG, countdown to May 29. It's a really long one, but yeah, that's what it is. I wanted to set up a couple of collections on that, and there was what I thought I read was saying, I can't remember now because I'm too worked up about it, but it wasn't good, and so I decided to not set it up.
I don't remember. This is a worrying sign.
Oh, I know it was. Okay, so it said that your collections can be, like, other people's collections that you follow can be seen on, they will be shown like your community.
But only if they haven't set them as private. Look, what it is, you can post, and you've been using hashtags to kind of tie posts together.
Of course, meta tags,
right.
Yes.
Collections do exactly the same as putting hashtags in, except only you choose it, and nobody else can hijack their way into it. I.e., when you search for a hashtag, everybody who's used this hashtag, their posts are up there. But with a collection, it's only you.
So, like, you can say,
only
like, if someone wants to follow you in your collection, you can be like, oh, sorry.
Well, imagine that you started sharing some great metal music, and you put hardcore, hashtag hardcore. Right? And then one day you decide to look at hashtag hardcore to see what other music might be out there. Oh dear. And you find out that some of the people who've shared stuff with you, and some of the people generally that use hashtag hardcore that aren't even in your circles, they were not thinking about music, were they?
No.
Now,
however, it teaches you how to market, so you don't want to use it. That's why we changed our hashtag for Lend One Hand. We were originally Lend a Hand, and we decided, we don't want to reach those people. We want to reach Lend One Hand, and so we did thorough investigation, and we decided this is a better way of branding.
Mm-hmm.
I think it sounds like I know I'm jumping kind of in the middle here, but I think what you're saying, Kristin, is that you went over to follow somebody's profile, basically, or one of their collections, right? And it said,
no, I didn't want to follow anyone. But
it said, warning, this will show on your public profile, right?
Well, I went, something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've seen that message too, and I've seen some people out there put up posts saying, oh, you can hide your collections tab, or that it can display on your profile. This so far is not true, like it is with communities. Like with communities, you can turn off the communities tab, you can turn off community posts on your profile. So, but if you go into your settings right now under your personal profile or your brand page settings, there is no checkbox actually to remove posts from your profile or remove posts from your collections or remove the collections tab. So I think that is an unintended message at this point. That's my take on it, at least from the experimenting that I've done with it. is that there's
So were you
probably
in like the beta group? Because I know that, you know, I know several people that were, and I can't imagine. I mean, I trust them explicitly to catch these sort of things. So I'm just hoping that it's like a massive like social media, ha ha ha, Google punked you kind of experiment thing, and we're all gonna like at the end of the day we're gonna be like laughing. Oh, Google, you're brilliant. I would like that.
I think what's going to end up happening is kind of like how we have on our profiles, the little section of communities where you can select which communities you want to show on your profile. That's going to probably come out on our profile next with basically collections. So you're going to be able to control. So even if you are on, you know, inadvertently following one of these porn boards or whatever, then you're going to be able to just deselect them from your collections, basically.
Well, yeah, and you can unfollow them, but you have to go through each one.
Well, you don't. What I'm saying is, I know how you feel about adult content. Now, obviously, I don't feel the same way. I've worked for that industry. I've got no problem with it. But I know how you feel about it. If you've got somebody who is sharing a porn collection,
be hunting for it.
Unfollow the person, and you don't see any of their collections. Just unfollow. That's it.
That's what I was going to ask Kristin was, do you follow back everybody who follows you?
Oh, hell no.
Oh, okay.
I wouldn't be able to.
But that means that, see, I don't have that problem. I don't follow anyone back.
I know. It was just like last week. Well,
I don't care because I only want to hear from the people that I want to hear from. So, you know, I appreciate that they follow me. That's fine. But don't follow me expecting me to follow you back, right?
Yeah.
I know that anybody I follow, I now have to also see their shit. I now have to see their stuff in the search results, and I don't want to see that. I want search results. So I'm careful about who I follow.
Yeah.
That's the
I will say this.
That's the negative of Google Plus, that it's showing up in the, you know, to me, I think they're absolutely moronic to put real-time search back into the search because it's a waste. It's a waste of real estate. Now there's only, you know, 9 usable links, you know, in one place where spammers put stuff. You know, there's, you know, turn off the, you know, I wish you could search with Google Plus turned off, but there are times that I would like to see it, right? Like if I'm searching on SEO, and someone like Bill, I follow him because if I'm searching and he's written on a patent and I'm searching about that, his stuff is going to come up and it's going to be emphasized and enhanced listing, right? So it saves me hunting that stuff down, right? That way it's good. But if you follow everyone back who followed you, yeah, not going to work so well.
Yeah, definitely not. And like, I would not be getting up in arms like this if I were not so surprised at some of the people that have these things. And I really didn't want to know that about this person. And I have to manually go in and unfollow this collection that they've made. And I didn't want to know that they were into adult toys 18 plus. Sorry.
Okay, what I don't understand is I thought circles were supposed to do that.
And I thought that Google's safety search was supposed to like have some sort of hand in it. But I guess not.
No, but I thought that one of the advantages of Google Plus over all the others was I could put people into circles, which meant I could have a circle of people that were just from the dojo. I could have a circle of people from SEO pros.
But how well do we know each person?
Pardon me?
How well do we know each person? And
I know everyone.
Do we need to know each person?
Most of the people that I'm following are people that I actually know. They're probably connected to me in Skype and probably on Facebook.
Okay, here's a point that David Amerlin has been making. He made it a couple times last week, and he made it on our show yesterday. So when we're talking about like honesty, integrity, of course we want to be honest and we want to have full integrity. When someone asks you a question, what value will you bring to them by telling them that you've been divorced 3 times? Perhaps you can just say that you have been divorced. Like, you don't need to know every single detail. I don't need to know that.
This is exactly where collections comes in. The thing is, you see, there's somebody I follow who posts a few good marketing kind of articles and things that are quite interesting to me. They also post a lot of pictures of their dinner, which isn't at all interesting to me. Now, by using collections, they can separate these things out, and I can unfollow their food collection. I can unfollow their what I did with my kids last week collection, and just get the marketing stuff. And if they mark that out and always manage to put it in that category, I can just follow that one category from them and unfollow all of the others. Now, that's exactly what people have been asking for, and now we finally got it. But of course, it's a bit like everything else Google do.
It's backwards.
Look at this thing recently with Mobile Geddon. You know, if they're showing bad results in searches on mobile, people say, oh, it's so that they can sell the ad space because you've got to get above all that rubbish. They're putting rubbish in so that you have to buy your way there if you've got a good site. Now, because they did this thing that filtered and put better search results in, they said, that's to make more people buy. Whichever way it goes, it seems that Google's just doing it to sell ads. And I
don't mind ads.
When they didn't have a way of filtering out, look, I don't want to read everything this person does, just this thing. Well, that's what they've given us. And if you don't want to read anything by that person, you've still got that. It's called uncircling them.
So it's almost like a refinement of circles to where you can, I don't really care about what this guy says about, his favorite hobby, but I do care what he writes about on marketing.
Yeah.
Or on me, it'd probably be the Maple Leafs.
Of course, only if he then uses collections to do that. And this is it. Collections is a way of curating your own posts in real time and historically. You can even curate other people's stuff because you can copy that into your collection. Of course, the way it's done, you can only do collections of your own posts. So if you want to add somebody else's post to your collection, it's going to make a reshare of that post that is in your collection. So it will automatically reshare it to your collection. But you know what? It's all good. I like it.
Okay, and then so I guess I'm just disappointed. I would rather see us be able to opt in individually to people's collections.
Copy that into your. Hey, Jeff.
Good catch.
Line posts. So if you want to add some.
Oh, man.
Somebody's got that video playing in the background.
Yeah, still playing the recording.
Yeah.
Jeff, yay!
So yeah, Zara was just saying, are you separating in your mind your personal disappointment in an individual from your ability to control the collection?
No, I'm not. I fully admit that. I'm personally disappointed. But I'm also personally disappointed with the way that I think it was sloppily given to the public. I think that it should be still in a beta because then people
you mean collections is sloppy or the porn was sloppy?
What?
Sloppy porn is bad. Was it the collection that was sloppy or the porn that was sloppy? I think.
I'm not going to get into that juicy kind of stuff, but but I will say I think that we should be able to individually opt into the collections that we choose, and we're choosing rather than have it be a default that we're just following everyone.
You know what, Kristin? The whole rollout could have been done so much better because really what it takes is now it takes a lot of work for everybody to go through because you have to go through and say, okay, well, you can only have a maximum of 50 boards between your own and the ones you follow. And for those of us
really?
who have so you can only have a maximum of 50 boards. So collections, I'm sorry. So I'm talking Pinterest talk here. Anyway.
Screen share.
So the problem there is like when I brought it up last night, it's like everybody who had collections that I was following, my screen was filled and it was taking a long time to load. So I wasn't going to spend another hour just going through all the boards and saying, okay, I don't want kittens, I didn't see any porn, but I don't want any porn, I don't want this, I don't want that, I don't want cat gifs, I know where to go for those, but I didn't take that time because I don't have the time for it. But now that I've gone back to my home stream and seen how much of a mess my home stream is, I'm going to go back this weekend and I'm going to start unfollowing a ton of collections.
So I don't understand the 50 number, because are you saying 50 is relative to ton, or
50 is 50 total.
I had way more than that.
Are you sure?
Yeah, like I can screen share. Watch,
you have presented, but I don't think you're actually technically following them yet.
Well, you automatically subscribe to them if you follow the person.
Can I make a comment about Kristin's larger point, though?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. The idea of the social, though, is I think we kind of get a peek into people's living rooms, instead of, their public space. And we actually get little illegal glimpses of more than we sometimes expect to see. But I think that each person is capable of that, and that's why we have private space like living rooms, where we kind of have our private thoughts, and we can maintain those thoughts ourselves. And then between what we all do is, between all of us, everything's objectionable. We have to understand that for each person, I think there's going to be things that we find objectionable that they do, and we have to filter out. So I like this dual filtering layer. It lets me say I like this person, but I don't like what they do about this, so I'm going to block that. And then if you have a person you really just don't like at all, you just block that person. Or filter it, but this dual layer of filtering allows me to kind of selectively choose people and their topics together as opposed to one or the other. So I kind of like it, but it's complicated. It just takes a while to set up, I think, is probably what we're going through as a growing pains, the original setup.
Right.
Yeah, brilliant comment. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the things that that strikes me about this is a very new product, and Bill was just talking about some of Google's patents, a couple of patents he were looking at that were looking at ways of collating and collecting, doing collections of entities. And, it's amazing that literally as those patents came out, so was this going on in the background and kind of, collections, interesting. It does seem that it's a rollout in collaboration with something else, and I think much as we've seen social media used to train elements of Google before, I think that collections is going to do a similar thing. I think it's helping double check against the machine learning of how things collate and go together. We've got the auto hashtagging, which isn't that smart. It's just trying to pick out the most popular words are used that also correlate with hashtags. I think this is a way of making the algorithm smarter within Google+.
It's another node of information, and if you look at how powerful that's going to be for business pages, because now you're going to be able to have up to 50 managers basically managing a collection. So now you're going to be able to algorithmically, basically with people, teach Google so much more about your company and its interests and your culture and the topics that you're interested in, not just your products and your services. And at the end of the day, we all know that Google's biggest bottom line is the data that they collect and then how they can monetize that data. So, I think collections is brilliant after we get through these growing pains.
Yeah, and see, that's what kind of made me mad once I started looking into it, because just on theory, I totally embraced it, and I was like, yeah, this is like what Gideon Rosenblatt's been talking about, interest-based streams. Yes, thank you. Yay, this is it. And I thought, yay, we have our Google Plus manna, we're being fed it, and this is wonderful. And I made this big long post to Jason T. Weiser, and I was like, this is what we need to go to our About page, and we need to take all of our services, and we need to list these under collections, and it was brilliant. It was brilliant. And then I started to try to, fabricate it into something real, and I was like, ugh, this is messy and yucky. But I'm glad to hear that you're saying that the brand pages will be able to use those.
I'm digging Ben's comment a lot. It is totally a business thing. I think it's a way for business to really insert themselves into the personal stream of people in a way that's memorable. So I'm already taking, when I do home inspections, finding defects in houses. I created a collection of House Defects 101, and I share that with people. And then they see things that fail in their house, and they go, oh my God, I've seen that before. And all I know is one thing, is they now remember that moment, and they remember my company for bringing it to them. And so this is the way I think that, the idea of letting businesses, small business especially, introduce themselves into people's streams, that these collections have a lot of value. So I'm 100% with you, Ben.
Yeah. Indexing. It's all about the Rolodex and index.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, it adds a human component to a brand, and we know that's the biggest barrier for any brand to gain a following and gain actual engagement, is that human-to-human quality, because you feel like you're talking to a logo. And so if you can add that kind of interest-based with collections, now all of a sudden I can relate a little bit more to you as a brand. And now
that's kind of. Sorry.
It's one of those things where, it's new, and so far we haven't worked out the manners, the politeness, the way of doing this, the etiquette for it, and that's something that is going to take us a few weeks. It'll be surprisingly quick, but there's no way Google can predict it, because after all, this is us. It's for us to decide. You can try and set it, but because everybody's got different tastes, I'm actually glad that Google have put this out without too many limitations and telling us how to use it, because let's face it, the first thing we do is do it in completely different ways anyway. There aren't supposed to be SEOs. We're supposed to just accept search as it is. No, it shouldn't be any tweaking or working out where you rank or trying to rank any better. You should just take Google's word for it.
And you never have to do maintenance. Yeah, but that is kind of cool. So, we're all beta testers together, so I can dig that. I've been a beta tester a million times.
Yeah. I hate to tell you, but we've all been beta testers of Google products since 1998. So.
Well, I've only been on search. I've only been on the computer for less than 2 years.
In that time, you have been a beta tester first, because search result.
You're using anything by Google.
Yeah,
you're
anything
by research data for sure. Google Talk, right? When they had that, they had one of the best guys in the world looking at all the dialogue that went on there, and that's how they refined their speech recognition stuff. That's what that was about, was to train, they gave free phone calls away for a while, but they gained huge amount of interest of data on voice search. Is that what we call it? I guess. So, and this guy, he was one of the leaders in analyzing that stuff. He'd been around for before the internet kind of deal. One of those guys that they grabbed.
We know that Google are very interested in voice recognition generally, because they've got voice search right now, but we've also got Google Glass, which is supposed to respond to your voice, and the Android devices that they want to respond to your voice, and we can be pretty sure that one of these days they'd quite like for those Google cars, the automatic driving cars, to be operating as taxis, and you get in and tell it where you want to go, and it takes you. We're going to see more and more robots where they want people, able to speak to the thing, and that's going to be the interface. We want a more human interface. I think Google is definitely working on a lot of things that are going to have that human interface, and therefore really good speech recognition. across
Ammon,
all
did you
languages.
did you read about the acquisition that Google just made yesterday?
Which one?
Actually, they acquired an iOS app, which is basically a personal assistant, and you can say, "I want to call my mom twice a week," and it'll automatically go ahead and put it on your schedule. They're working on a Android version of it right now, and of course, I'm assuming it's going to come to Google now, almost immediately after that happens. So that goes along with exactly what you're talking about, right? With, of course, with personal assistants.
Yeah.
Well, also, Ammon, is the the ability to do all that. I'm a Google Glass Explorer almost 2 years now, so I'm very familiar with that. And the voice-to-text translation is outstanding when you have access to the servers. So really the big issue becomes this offline first mode where when your cell phone can't connect to the server, you're all of a sudden stupid. And so this idea of offline first computing becomes important, where you create a framework that allows you to kind of pull a little bit of the data with you, a little workspace, just like Gmail offline is.
Mm-hmm.
And so these features are going to have to come to wearable computing, and the dilemma is that you're still trying to pack it into something the size of a sugar cube, and power is, of all darn things, still the issue. Having enough power to do all these things. So they're trying to do it all, and it works good. But when you lose contact with servers, or when you lose power, they go back down to like, boy, I sure am glad I can talk to a guy face to face. These tools are important. So I think it just augments, but it doesn't replace any kind of business skills as person to person, whatever imagine business can be.
I think that's very true. I also think that at the moment, the problems sometimes that, you've got these things. A smartphone, they're very smart these days. The chips are right up there, but the data storage space on one isn't very big. And let's face it, voice recognition, you've got to have a lot of data. You've got to have every sound a human voice can possibly make somewhere in there that you can recognize. To compare it to, you've got to have the data on every sound that a human voice box can make. Now, I think where that's going to come from is more data squirts, little bits of data flying backwards and forwards. Instead of full-on connectivity, I think there's going to be a lot more towards that, but we'll have to see.
Is that a technical term?
Data squirts.
Google calls it notifications, but I think Google squirts might not be a bad name too. And I think you're right. You're going to have to parse this thing down to small pieces, because there's a lot of data flowing, and it's visual, and it's audio, and it's all of them. So if you can't compress it all into one, then you have to kind of figure out a way to break it down so that you can analyze little pieces. Just my thoughts.
Responding to Kath Dawson, because
I
just got a message from her in the chat that she was supposed to be there, and she keeps having problems commenting. So I'm just going to fill in a little ad box for Kath while you carry on talking.
And I was going to say we're awfully juicy today. Okay, now someone else. Shall we talk about Tesla a little bit? The power pack? Anyone want to go? I just have been watching and admiring, but I don't know all the technical stuff. I'm the subject bringer, upper. I just get excited about something.
They're making leaps and bounds, of course, in battery technology, and having one that's going to be at your home, and I'm sure they're going to even try and make it smaller. But I mean, it's pretty exciting, actually, the possibilities that go behind all the Tesla technology.
And for Africa, it is huge. And I think that, it seems to make sense that, that would be the place to use as the foreground to make this happen, because they have so much sun. They've got that natural resource right there, but they really need it. They're so far behind in so many different ways, and if we're truly going to have a real global community, we need to catch people up. We need to get everyone on the same playing field at least, so that they can have the same opportunities to have information. As my little soapbox.
You're right, though. I install solar. I've done it for 5 years. I install solar panels for farms, agriculture, ranchers, so that they can irrigate their orchards with using the sun instead of like electricity and pumping water, and it's really amazing. So you're right on track. But what these batteries are, they're like they're an arbitrage mechanism. The thing is, they're just storage. So even if you don't have solar, even if you don't believe in that, you can take this battery, put it in your house, and you can have it charge up at night when your solar electric company or when your electric company charges you less for power. And then you can draw during peak demand hours. So you're basically buying power when it's cheap and then using it when it's expensive. Even if you don't have solar, you can benefit from buying the arbitrage of the power price on the tier levels. But also, if you have solar, then you just push all your solar into that. And the key is demand it back during peak hours so you get the full value, dollar value of your solar power. But Africa and places like that, it's amazing because it's like an immediate head start. Food, water, shelter, and energy. But without energy, you really don't have much. So with this, you have instant access to that. And you can pump water with it. Just put a small pump, drop something down on the ground, and start living. So,
that is so cool. Like our friend Rotimi, I get to have like a little window into everything that he does just to go through his daily activities, and I'm just like, you're my hero, like every day. Like, it's amazing.
It's life-changing.
They do, and they only have like 85% of the day he's without internet access, and what he's able to accomplish during the time that he is on it, he's like super, like, I don't know, he blows me away. And other people that are over there and they're actually making a difference, and yeah, they have to be pretty determined, and I just think that we should do everything in our power to.
Africa is very much a mobile-first culture, because putting the hardware in, putting the infrastructure of fiber optic cables, not happening, and it's not likely to happen either. So using mobile and 3G networks is it's a big thing for them, but of course they've still got the same problems with data plans and the amount of data transfer you can get and how many people are trying to use, in some cases, not very many masts at a time. So actually the success of mobile is almost getting in its own way over there at the moment. There's not enough hardware and infrastructure in place at the moment, and sadly the way some things go in Africa, that's probably going to continue for a while. It does.
You're right. They may have to do more of a broadcast first type approach like TV and just push, with limited bandwidth, a message out to a lot of people. And there's education comes in layers. And maybe they'll have to kind of just push a message out, and then later on there'll be more opportunities to create more infrastructure. But you're right, they don't need to build like landlines, that's for sure. I think they've been able to being behind us now led them to bypass that whole archaic infrastructure now, in a way.
Yeah, and it's something, it makes me think of Google Loon, and that wasn't such a loony idea. The idea of using balloons to put the infrastructure into place with no digging. You just put the balloon where you need it to be. I think it's a very clever idea. I would like to see a government get behind that.
It had to be
actually, Nikola Tesla had that concept of putting up balloons and actually having just wireless energy blanket the Earth using balloons. So, I mean, I support Project Loon, and then that's probably where the inspiration was.
Yeah. I must admit, the idea of a power grid through the air somewhere above my head, that worries me a little bit. But I think that might be one of the things that worries people. I mean, in the first world, we already have a lot of people who, I want mobile access, but I don't want those microwave aerials on my roof. Thank you very much. I'm worried about the health risks of this. maybe the balloons are the best way to go. Put it enough away from us that we've got nice clear coverage, because landmarks aren't getting in the way. You're not having to worry about build-up of buildings. You're not having to worry about the hills as much. Maybe it's the way to go.
Yeah, then we only have to worry about people with lasers shooting them down.
Yeah. People using their drones to hack in.
And you know that would happen, Emma.
Yeah. I can just imagine now people, trying to arm their drones to take down the balloons. It's a strange world.
Or a 15-year-old flying up there with a drone with a robotic arm so they could hack into the wireless network and gather everybody's data.
No, but ironically,
Yeah,
it's
I
a
can see
worldwide system because the Earth spins, so you can't just keep them positioned over your country. That's the whole idea, is they spin around the Earth. So it would be ironically something that an individual country could not implement because it would have to be a worldwide solution.
To get the whole network, yeah. But of course, you can tether them just like they used to do with dirigibles. So, it's a quick way of getting an infrastructure into place, and I think on a countrywide scale, that would be a great test for it. And of course, by tethering them, they stay in place.
That's a good idea too. Test them.
And the boy that I love is that it's open source. They're bending over backwards to beg people to get involved. I'm talking about Tesla, of course, but Elon Musk is just so cool. Begging people to do this with him, that is making it freely available. Like, people get involved. But our unknown health risks, the number one argument, because people get into that, and it's a legitimate question.
Dave threw up a comment that's absolutely right and important to consider, is that even having the power in some of the countries is a bit of a problem. His brother, when he was alive, lived in Nairobi, had power failures and telecom failures at least twice a week, and rarely on the same day, so one or other was going to get you 4 times a week maybe. So it is a problem, and that's probably what is going to be the next step of measuring the difference between first world, second world, third world countries. We are more and more in a digital and electronic age, and I think the electronic infrastructure could change where a country is on that scale, that it's not so much the GDP anymore, although the richer countries of course can afford more of the infrastructure, they can afford to invest more. I think that it would be quite possible for some of the smaller countries without much GDP to, get the infrastructure in place, because there's less country to cover.
Well, just like Kristin said too, is if you can tap into natural resources. In other words, if you're a small country with a lot of sunlight, you all of a sudden are rich, because you can generate power. And so, just as you mentioned, is Africa is ripe with sun exposure. I mean, just imagine the Sahara Desert covered with nothing but solar panels. Talk about power. So
yeah, and then if you're saying, like what you're saying, if it's not tethered, then how cool is that? We're sharing. They now have a resource to trade with.
And not only that, what else is to do with the Sahara? It's not like you're going to have a lush garden there, so might as well put it to use for sun exposure. Every unique environment has its unique best application. And then, the problem becomes being able to distribute it globally. That's why I'm such a locavore, because transportation costs are expensive. But
I'm in favour of certain farms, but I worry, all right, maybe the Sahara's not in my backyard, so I don't worry as much about it. But I would hate to see a whole load of water wheels on the Niagara Falls.
I agree. I can understand that.
Within limits.
Well, have you ever been out to California where they have all the wind power generators?
That's cool. I love driving by that.
Yeah, those things they're huge, and they're actually a beautiful sight to see.
Yeah.
I live there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've always been amazed that
Palm Springs. Yeah, if you go out to Palm Springs from the coast into Palm Springs, you go through these huge farms on both sides of the freeway. and it's quite impressive. They're bigger than you think.
Yeah, well, I mean,
They're
every time I come to down there to San Diego, John, I mean, I drive right through those things, and they're massive. I just love them.
Yeah.
Only problem I see with solar panels, though, in the Sahara Desert is, well, it's a desert, number one, and
So you need
number
infrastructure.
two, the sand shifts a
Right.
lot.
Exactly.
Right,
The
well,
sandstorms can actually block
Yeah.
out the sun for some time. It definitely, the passage of all those grains of sand scratch the surface and interfere with how well it can take the light in.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then you've got to run the cables to transmit all that power thousands of miles in a country that can't afford thousands of miles of cable. So
Mhm.
Gorilla Glass is really cool. Like, it doesn't scratch that easily. So maybe we can improve on that technology and send it there.
I must admit, I've always been amazed that they haven't set up a wind farm in Washington. I mean, that place produces a lot of air.
Yeah. Mm.
Well, you're right about transportation costs, Emma, because they tried to put in a solar farm here in California, Northern California, up where it's pretty deserty and there's not much else used for its lava beds, so it has little less use. But even the infrastructure costs and the cabling, and then just the loss function of just transporting the electrical down the grid, is the inherent loss in the wires, makes it more efficient just to put a small set of solar panels right next to your house and just pull power locally from that. You know, the transport cost becomes a function.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's always going to be a thing. And also, if you think of the miles that you've got to transport that cable and some of the countries that that's going through, where, do you know what? 1 mile of that cable can put their family through, 2 years of earnings. It's going to be really hard for them not to steal it.
Cut
You
the
know?
cable.
Yeah. Dig it up.
Oh yeah, there's
Share it.
there's a lot of. I've talked to a number of contractors here in Southern California, and it's a huge problem on job sites of having people coming and ripping copper out of the walls and stealing the metal. I mean, in fact, one of the problems even on farms out here in California is the equipment out on the farm to get stolen, melted down. Batteries, copper, you name it, it just gets ripped off and stolen very quickly. So yeah, it's a big
It's become
problem.
a major crime over here, is metal theft, where
Yeah.
people have been stealing from the railways, taking rails at times, but certainly taking the cabling from the side, because metal prices are quite high at the moment, and you can't watch it all. So there are special units of police now trying to keep up with these gangs that are taking large amounts of metal. It used to be that you used to have to worry about, somebody stealing the lead from the roofs in some places, but now it seems like anywhere you're leaving metal, it's somebody's poor enough to need to steal it, which makes me worry about my country.
Happens everywhere. Big in the United States, too.
Yeah, but it feels like a new kind of poverty. It's kind of like, the Victorian age, where you had a lot of people who specialised in particular ways of looking for money. The famous ones being the toshers, the people who illegally went through the sewers to find lost coins and bits of jewelry that had slipped down. They would be going through.
There was a specialized job title for that, actually.
Yeah. So, are we now again a kind of poverty where the infrastructure is worth more than people have?
Well, it's a comment on the profiting of scarcity. And, if these things weren't scarce, then there wouldn't be the profit motive, but there is. And so I think it just doubles down on our needs to be conservative with our resources and power and energy, because I think we face these issues every time we finally run headlong into the fact that, like, oops, we didn't realize it wasn't going to last forever.
Yeah.
Kind of mentality.
Yeah.
One of the things that,
Go on, John.
One of the things I want to circle back around, and we were talking about the deserts, and I have a biology background, and I spent a lot of time out in the desert, and people tend to think deserts as being nothing, but they're really not. There's a lot out there. um, and they're very fragile. You know, you take a walk around a cactus and you think, oh, how nice. You just probably killed it because you just stepped on all its roots and damaged its ability to pick up the moisture that might fall. And so, you know, it's a very fragile environment, and people don't totally appreciate it. I realize you were talking about the Sierra and the sand dunes, as there's really not much there, and that's a different kind of desert. But we use the term desert, and it means a lot of different things. There's a high desert, low desert. There's deserts that are quite lush. If you've ever had a chance to go into some of the deserts in southern Arizona, for example, they're actually quite green at various times of the year and beautiful with flowers and everything. So
I live in
just
Arizona.
keep in mind that, yeah, deserts are not all the same. They're, you know, that word desert means a lot of things. So, you know, we just got to be a little careful with that. So that's my little pet peeve about deserts.
Let me, excellent point, and I don't even want to kind of focus on desert, because I think more just to come back to Kristin's point is there's new economies, and one of the new economies is that you can capture a lot of sunlight. Now, whether you do it in a desert or wherever, is the idea that you can like be a quote-unquote impoverished or poor nation, but you're capturing a lot of sunlight, allows you an opportunity, like as if like in an old world country you had a lot of access to gold to move forward. So the idea that nations can be impoverished but have access to these new monetized commodities that provide value, I think is the point I was trying to make.
I think the danger there is the same as we've seen elsewhere. You know, early on in human development, Africa was poor in the kind of resources that it needed. It didn't have a lot of metal when we were working with brass, when we were working with bronze, when we were working with iron, when we were working with steel. Africa was a little bit behind. So by the time we discover that Africa's got a hell of a lot of diamonds, it's not the Africans who get to dig it up and make the money. It's the developed world that goes in and sets up a diamond mine and pays the people next to nothing and treats them like, well, you know. And the same has happened with oil in Nigeria. These countries did have resources, but by the time we'd got to where that resource was valuable, like we have with sunlight now, they were in no position to exploit it, sadly. And I think that's exactly the same thing. These countries don't have the technology and finance to set up the farms, so somebody's going to go in there and rip them off to set it up. That's a sad thing. Unfortunately, we're out of time for this week. We'll probably carry on this conversation in the green room. If anyone wants to jump in after the show, feel free. That's it for us for this week. Thank you, everyone.